Hello, everyone. On this podcast, we are all about raising happy, confident, and well rounded human beings. And we are always exploring positive parenting tools that help us do that. But let's face it, if our kids aren't healthy or we're feeling run down, our focus inevitably shifts to those basic needs. So it's essential to lay a foundation of family health and wellness, which lets us thrive and gives us the energy to reach those higher goals. Today, I've invited Sandie Gascon, a certified integrative healing practitioner, to share more about the functional approach to healing, along with some practical natural tips we can use to help ensure that we and our kids stay healthy, happy, and energized. That way, we can all focus on living our best lives. Hi, Sandie. Welcome to the show. I'm truly happy
Okay.
to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
To start us off, can you explain to our listeners what integrative healing actually is and what sets it apart from conventional medicine? And then I'd love for you to share a little bit about your own journey and how you came into this field and develop your passion for integrative health.
Yeah, so my approach in itself is very different than even functional medicine. So when you go to conventional doctors, they're looking for diseases. Are you in a disease range? They're not really helping you get to optimal health. They're not helping you prevent diseases. They are very much sick care. They're waiting for you to get sick and then they're treating that. And they're not really going to address root causes. They're going to give you something that suppresses symptoms. So when we're looking at more of a functional, holistic approach, our goal really is to get to the root causes. What is going on? Let's give the body tools to heal. And my approach is even more different than that, in that I'm not going off of your symptoms. When I'm working with adults or children, it doesn't matter. We are following a very systematic approach and looking at the entire body. We want to work on all the systems because we realize that everything works together. And just trying to treat a symptom is not going to bring the body back into balance. So our goal is to use functional labs, see what the body needs, and then have custom protocols based on those labs, work on nutrition and mindset and everything else that goes along with healing, because it really is a body, mind, spirit approach. But it really is based on doing the functional labs and following the entire Heal Yourself program.
Amazing. And how did you come to that? Like, how did you get introduced
Yeah,
to this way of
well,
thinking?
I suffered from migraines when I was 7. That led to a lot of insomnia, mood issues. I was diagnosed with bipolar depression when I was 19, put on medication for that, really wanted to dedicate my life to finding a cure for migraines and was actually going to school to become a doctor. But it was in my second year I realized that the pharmaceutical industry was not something that I wanted to be involved with. I actually changed course, went on to become a massage therapist, but developed food poisoning and my health just spiraled. And from there, I was diagnosed with lupus. I ended up developing interstitial cystitis. And it was really in my journey healing myself naturally, because that's what I committed to, that had me go on to become a practitioner, get certified. And then over the years, I've been doing this now for 8 years, my program Heal Yourself came together, and I went on to write my book and start the Integrative Healing Academy, where I train practitioners to go out there and really focus on bringing the Heal Yourself program to the world.
And when you say naturally, what does this encompass? Like, what methods do you use?
Yeah, so we want to really think about the body as a bank account. And a lot of us are severely depleted. We're born and we're making withdrawal after withdrawal. So toxins, emotional stress, all of these things are putting a really big burden on the body. And that includes pathogens, viruses, parasites, protozoa, all these things are taking withdrawals from the body. And most people in the conventional world are not actually making any deposits. They're just making withdrawals. And so when we move into this natural way of healing, our goal is to start to reduce the stress on the body. So start to reduce our emotional stress, reduce our toxins, reduce the pathogen load, and start making deposits. And deposits can be from, doing things that we love, eating really good, clean food. But really, the biggest deposit is going to be running functional labs and seeing where our imbalances and deficiencies are in the body and what supplements and herbs can we use to start to repair the body.
And Because the blood work is a momentary snapshot. How often do we need to test
Yeah,
it?
so it's a momentary snapshot, but when if I was to take your blood now and tomorrow and next week, if you're not changing anything in your lifestyle, we would see the markers that I'm looking at stay relatively the same. Nothing would really change because I'm testing at a certain time of day. I'm looking at a certain range. We're looking at optimal ranges, not disease sick care ranges. So where are the healthy people sitting? What does their blood work look like? Not where does your neighbor who it might be 100 pounds overweight, when we don't want to know where they're sitting, we want to see where the healthy people are sitting. So I could take your blood work, and if you're not doing anything to actively change your blood, it would remain the same or start to get worse if other stressors were happening. So that is fine that it's a moment in time, but we're not just looking at blood work. I look at something called an organic acids test, and I look at genetics, which your genetics themselves, the base pairs are not going to change, but with epigenetics, things could be turned on and turned off based on, are you under stress or are you healing your body?
That sounds interesting. Could you let us know more about it, epigenetics?
Yeah, so epigenetics is really, really cool in that if you are under a lot of stress and your detox pathways aren't functioning properly, some of these genes that we don't want to turn on will turn on. And if you're very healthy and you're taking care of your body, we can actually help the body turn off these genes that are causing disease. So our goal is to support the body as much as possible so that we can turn off these unwanted genes that could be causing disease.
Amazing. So if my mom and her mom were suffering from breast cancer, that doesn't mean that I will.
Right. Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, what about the kids? Do we have the same protocol for kids?
So with kids, it's going to really depend on what is going on and how old they are, right? So if we're talking about a baby who is suffering from eczema, we're going to be limited on some of the testing that we could do. We definitely can, figure it out to get an organic acids test done, which is a urine test. We could definitely do a genetics test with a cheek swab. So that can be done with the baby. But ideally, unless the baby is very sick, we don't want to be getting blood work and causing trauma to a baby or a young child. So there are different, ranges of disease that I work with. I can have kids that have some behavioral issues, and we're just going to be running organic acids and genetics and gut testing and working on that. And then we might have a teenager who is very capable of getting blood work, already is now having hormonal changes. They can do the entire program. So it really depends on the age and what's going on. Sometimes I work with children who are very sick. They might be 3 or 4, and that's a time where we do get blood work, or parents already come to me having blood work. We have to look at, do we want to put the child through that? My son, up until a couple months ago, he had never had blood work. So we're going off of the labs that were less invasive.
And how old is he?
He is now 6.
Okay. So there are some signs that indicate a need for lab testing. What are those signs?
If your child is suffering from any type of severe illness, the symptoms are generally that they're seeing a doctor and they're very concerned. I had a young boy who is covered in eczema, like terrible, nonstop rashes, very scaly, welting skin. And the parents already had sought out blood work because they're trying to rule out different autoimmune issues, things that are going on. But if your child is just having some behavioral changes, they might be having temper tantrums. It's definitely not one that I would go and jump to getting blood work. But we can do a lot of other functional labs like the organic acids and the genetics and the gut testing.
And the thing is that we do the blood work and go to the doctor, and they're so quick to prescribing all kinds of medications without even being sure what actually it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times you'll go to the doctor, they won't even do blood work and they'll prescribe you medications without knowing what it is based on symptoms. And it is very scary. I see a lot of kids who are they might be 7, 8 years old on antidepressants, or we're really pushing children into a school system that doesn't work with a lot of kids' brains. And
Mm.
they're being given drugs to boost their focus so that they can fit into society's role for them. And there's a lot we can do naturally, but there's also the developmental aspects that we have to look at because kids are all very different. And for some kids, they might really succeed in math and English, and that other child might grow up to be an athlete. And we have to honor that every child is different, and we don't necessarily need to change their brain chemistry to get them to fit into what we feel should be their role.
So not all kids with ADD and ADHD have to take medications to calm them down.
Right. They might need to be pulled from the school system and put in homeschooling and given more outlets to express their energy. And with ADHD, a lot of kids, they're not able to learn and focus because they're not attached to their teachers. And so we know through Dr. Gordon Neufeld's work and developmental theory that if a child is not attached to the person teaching them, they're going to have a hard time learning. The kids who do learn are often the ones who are trying to be good or get love. They might be missing something, missing the attention at home, and they're just trying to be good. That's how I was. I wanted to be the good kid. And I wanted my aunt, who was really raising me, to love me and think that I was the greatest kid, right? So I was always good. I was good all the time. I followed the rules. I did all the things right. So there are these attachment behaviors that are really driving children. And if we don't have an understanding of attachment and are just treating a symptom, then we're really missing out on the bigger picture. So with adults, we do a lot of mindset work. We look at our emotional traumas, we look at our thoughts. Kids can't do that. It's up to us to look at how children's brains develop and then cater to their brain, not to what society thinks they should be doing.
Well, there's a lot functional medicine covers. I love
Well,
that
and this is
approach.
again, functional medicine doesn't necessarily cover this, but with my approach, when I'm working with parents and working with their child, I do encourage them to really look into developmental psychology, do Dr. Gordon Neufeld's courses, look at these attachment issues. It doesn't mean that we don't love our children, but when we send our children away, they often become peer attached. And that
Mm.
creates a lot of behavioral issues. That creates a lot of ADHD, a lot of ADD, because they're not attached to the right person, which is the person who is teaching them. And we've got these big classes, 20, 30 students, kids having to sit into chairs, and it's just going to create a lot of different issues. And the answer definitely isn't putting them on medication, because now we're seeing, and Dr. Gordon Neufeld has a lot of studies on this, that when we put young kids on medications, their brain actually starts to slow in their development. So it starts halting it. And we need the brain to be developing. And a lot of the medications, the anti-anxiety medications, which kids are having anxiety leaving their parents, or they're having anxiety because they're being bullied, or they're depressed because they're bullied. And then we're putting them on this medication, which is then numbing their emotions, changing their emotions, which then changes the way their brain develops.
That's terrible. Just terrible. To make
Yeah,
things easier on us and the teachers.
yeah, exactly. And to, perpetuate the system that we think is needed.
I would like to talk about toxicity. I think a lot of people don't realize the level of toxins we're living
Mhm.
with daily. And while I don't want to scare people, this is the reality. Even the air we're breathing is compromised. And do you have some practical tips that we can give parents to just protect families from environmental toxins
Yeah, and
as much as
it's
possible?
definitely right. We can't do it all. I wish we could, but you're right. The air is, highly toxic, and the water and the food that we're eating, especially if you're buying processed foods with preservatives and artificial colors and artificial flavors and pesticides and GMO, there's a lot. Like our body is burdened. Then we have, cleaning products, products we put on our skin, what we wash our clothes in, what we wash our bodies in, and it's
Even the
it's
toothpaste.
the toothpaste, exactly. Like everything seems to be wanting to, kill us. Really, it's very, very toxic, and that in itself, those toxins are going to prevent the body from making neurotransmitters. It's going to cause autoimmune conditions. This can be things that we're injecting into our bodies, and things that we can do, like right off the bat, get a good water filter. I use a zero filter. It's over the counter. You don't have to spend thousands. Filter your water and start buying from the farm. Find a local farm that sells meat and milk and eggs. Buy from the farm. If you live in, like I live in Florida, we have access to produce a lot of the year. Buy locally, find a farm that you know, find somebody who's growing food that is not using a lot of chemicals and pesticides. Try to clean it up, but really it's starting slow. You know, you're not going to change everything in a day. You can pick one thing to do a week. Like this week, I'm going to tackle my laundry detergent and I'm going to switch to a cleaner brand. This week, I'm going to tackle my dish soap. You know, next week, I'll tackle the toothpaste. And by doing that, by taking it slow and just realizing that the majority of things you have in your house have a lot of toxins in it, and just, you know, checking off the boxes, going room to room. Those Glade plugins, throw them in the garbage. Scented candles, throw that in the garbage. It's the next secondhand smoke. Anything that has the perfumes, we want to really reduce that. Do natural essential oils instead. So there's so much that we can do, but it is recognizing that it is a process.
And it can get very pricey if we
Very.
tackle all the things.
Exactly. In general, it is very pricey. When we're looking at the costs of eating clean food, it is exponentially higher than just going to the grocery store and getting some bread and some cereal. There's definitely things that you can mitigate. You can learn how to make your own sourdough bread. You can get raw milk from the farm, make your own butter. So there's so much we can do. I make my own ice cream so that we're not reliant on the toxin-filled super sugar foods.
Do you use supplements?
Yes, definitely. Supplements are very important. Everybody in my family is tested, and our supplements are customized based on our labs. So my son got his genetic test done. I also have mine and his father's genetics, so we kind of know what was going on anyway. But ran his genetics, organic acids, get his body supported, making sure that he's taking the right supplements for him. So there's a lot of talk right now about MTHFR, and people are wanting methylated forms of supplements. So they're the active forms. And for a lot of people, it's not right. Like for me, I can't take any active methylated forms. It gives me anxiety, it makes me manic. And so it's really the importance of knowing our brain chemistry and our detox pathways and seeing an entire picture so that we are getting the right supplements, because just going and taking a multivitamin is not going to do very much, and it can cause a lot more harm than good.
Oh, it can cause harm as well.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're doing methylfolate, if you see that you have an MTHFR mutation and you start taking methylfolate, again, it can cause anxiety, it can cause depression, it could cause mania. If you're prone to higher dopamine levels, you could also have an active CBS mutation, which when you take those methyl donors is going to drive that to produce a lot of ammonia. And that can cause a lot of brain fog, lethargy, fatigue, aches and pains, mood swings, neurotransmitter imbalances. So it's really important before you start taking supplements to run the labs and see what is right for my body.
And this is the genetic test you're talking about.
Yeah, so when we're looking at the genetic test, it tells us where the mutations are, and then we run the blood work and the organic acids test to kind of see what's active and what's not active.
Okay. And can people do that from other countries as well? Like I do my lab test and give you the results so you can tell me,
Yeah,
okay.
right now I've got clients in 27 countries. You can also use the back of my book. In the appendix of my book, Heal Yourself, it goes over the different genetics, it goes over organic acids and blood work and a Dutch test, and it helps you analyze your labs.
Amazing, because this is what doctors don't do. Like
This is
I'm
what
going
doctors,
there,
yeah,
I'm showing them, and mostly they say, "Oh, you're okay.
you
You're
look
fine."
healthy, you're fine.
Yeah,
It's
because
your
it's
hormones. Here's an antidepressant.
well, my family, at least for now, we're healthy people and we don't have any major issues, but still we get tested once a year just to know if everything is in range. And still, I'm not sure that's the optimal range. It's
No.
just the normal one,
You
I
could be like
guess.
1 point away from the disease range, and they'll be like, "Hey, fine, go home."
Yeah, yeah. It's so important to actually know what you're looking at.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, so get the book. And then if we need more support and information, where do we go?
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's www.sgintegrativehealing.com. I work with kids of all ages. Of course, adults are always very easy. Kids, it can be a little bit tougher. Sometimes we have to, work to get the supplements in. Teenagers sometimes don't want to have anything to do with us or our supplements. And then we've got like toddlers who are going to sneak it into this food or that food, trying to get the supplements. My son, I actually taught him how to swallow pills, like little capsules, when he was 4. So he is a supplement pro. I make little capsules and they're very small, and I fill them up with regular adult supplements, and he can just take them like a pro.
Amazing. Okay, so even small issues like eczema, we better test and see what's going on.
Yeah, if you're starting to have eczema, skin issues, and for some kids it might be minor, they might have like a little bit, but oftentimes I see kids, especially after their well visits with the doctors, they start to develop severe eczema, more autoimmune type dysregulation that's happening. And you definitely want to start working on that, because once it starts happening, the skin is kind of telling you that something's going on with your detox pathways, with your gut, with your immune system. And if it's adults having skin issues, hormones can also be really playing a role. So you want to recognize that any symptom that your body is giving you is it trying to ask for help. It's sending you a message. Something is wrong. It doesn't mean you need to put some cream on it and try to make it go away. You need to always ask yourself, why is it happening? And how can I really get the right support on board for my body so it can come back into balance?
I love the approach that looks at the root cause rather than just treating the symptoms. Okay, and some daily habits or small changes families can make to support this physical and emotional health. Any ideas on that?
Yeah, so right off the bat, that's going to be start cutting out the food dyes and start cutting out the processed sugar, any of the processed foods. You want to really work to eat real foods, things that are in boxes, things that are super easy to prepare that you can just take out and eat. We want to go back to real foods, so clean meats and good quality grains. I use a grain called einkorn. It's one of the original ancient grains. It hasn't been genetically changed. When you're buying einkorn, you know that it's been grown well. It's not going to be, full of pesticides. And then you can go and start making your own food. Like, we really have to get back to making and preparing our own food.
In this current life we're living, is that even possible? Like work, school, all the daily
100%.
activities.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm a homeschooler, but when it comes to breakfast, like there's so many easy things that you can do. You can have a raw milk smoothie. You can have some oatmeal and some sourdough bread. You can have eggs with a well-sourced bacon. And really, it doesn't take that much longer to prepare. You might be adding 5-10 minutes of cook time for these breakfast foods. Lunches, prepare it the night before, prepare it on a Sunday and prepare all the lunches. And for dinner, again, if you're like me, I do not like to cook, so use an Instapot. We have 4 Instapots, and it's like, okay,
Favorite
there's
of mine as well.
right, instant meat, vegetables. We've got carrots, we've got potatoes. Let's turn it on, because I'm one of those people that I turn on the stove and I'm like, well, this is boring. I could be doing this. I'm going to go and do this while that cooks. And then 2 hours later, I'm like, oops. So we tend to prepare, we cook in the Instapot. I like to cook a lot of meals and then freeze them. And so I have like probably 10 meals of roast beef and potatoes and gravy and carrots in my freezer. Whenever we're cooking something, we're normally cooking bigger, and we freeze it so that, here, let's take it out. And there's a lot of farms. I love Dutch Meadows Farms. They have like einkorn pizzas and einkorn sourdough breads. So you can get some really clean stuff that is really easy to prepare. So, we had pizza last night. I take the pizza out of the freezer. I put the sauce on that comes with it. I put the raw cheese on that comes with it. I chop up my vegetables, my chicken. I get a well-sourced pepperoni. It takes me 10 minutes to prepare that pizza, and we have it 2 nights in a row. So we have it one night and the next night we have leftovers. So it just takes a little bit of creativity and you just have to jump into it. So I recommend like start with one meal, start with breakfast. It's an easy one to start with. If that's all you do for a month or two, that's fine. Start cleaning up your breakfast, getting rid of the cereals and, things that come in a package, things that are really high sugar, and take the time to get used to it. And then once that becomes a lifestyle change and you're like, yeah, I've got this, this is normal for me, like this is a habit, then, tackle dinner. Lunch is normally toughest for everybody, especially if they're going to work and to school. So I normally say leave that and then tackle dinner because
Mm,
you can prepare that on Sunday. You could get your crock pot out and prepare a bunch of things to put in your crock pot. And then in the morning, you put it in, you put it on, and you go to work. And you
I
come
love
back and
those tips.
it's
I love it. Yeah, it sounds doable.
doable. Exactly. And this is coming from somebody, seriously, when I started my journey, I was total standard American diet, probably had never cooked in my life. Anything that I ate was out of a box or a package. I lived off of cereal, and I can now cook a bunch of different meals. I even taught my husband how to cook these easy meals, right? So, if we can do it, and I don't like cooking, I like baking, but I do not enjoy cooking.
Okay. And I would also love to touch on natural remedies because I'm a big believer in holistic medicine. What are some safe, gentle options for children, like for parents to use on children, whenever we don't want to just go and get drugs from the pharmacy?
If you're talking about like viruses, which is happening a lot, I use a Canadian product. It's called St. Francis, and they have like a fire effect, a deep immune. They have one for kids. And it's a lot of different herbals, but you can do elderberry and echinacea. You can, cod liver is really great for boosting the immune system. I actually have a whole video. It's all on immune support, and I dose that for kids. Most of the time, when you're looking at adult supplements, kids can take a lot of it. Some things they shouldn't be taking. You definitely don't want to be changing the hormones or affecting anything like that without testing. But you can just do their weight. So if you have a 50-pound kid, that's like a third of an adult weight, they do a third of a dose. But we always make sure we have elderberry syrup and echinacea, and I always carry all of the St. Francis immune products, like the virus product. They have a fire effect, a one for the lungs, one for the sinus, one for the immune system. Love, love, love those products.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sandy, thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us today. This chat has been eye-opening, and I think our listeners will have a lot to think about and some great action steps to take right away. And before we go, could you share a little bit about the book again and where people can connect with you?
Yeah, so my book Heal Yourself is available on Amazon and Audible and Kindle. Just type it in with my name and it will pop up. And you can check out my website, www.sgintegrativehealing.com. My YouTube channel is Motivated to Heal. I've got a ton of free resources there. But if you're needing some support, you can always just message me through my website.